So the Joe Budden podcast returned to these YouTube streets with Joe Budden, Ice and Ish, and Parks, as well as the rest of the staff of the Joe Budden podcast. And before they went into their topics, Joe Budden wanted to address a lot of issues that has been happening surrounding him and the Joe Budden podcast. He first apologized to Olivia Dope, which that was stand up. He admit that he was wrong, and how he handled that. And moving forward, that will never happen again. So I finally, you have to give the guy, no matter if you love him or hate him, you have to give him some credit for admitting that he was wrong and how he mismanaged that situation. He also went into full details about Rory and Mal. He was wrong about that. He mismanaged that. He understands, and he's well aware right now that he was a bad leader and his leadership skills are not there. Okay, so he addressed a lot of things that a lot of people have been saying about Joe Budden. Kevin Hart said he's a bad leader. He mismanaged people. His communication skills are poor, which, if you've been paying attention and following Joe Budden, this shouldn't be new to anybody, including Rory and Mal. Guys, you've been doing business with him for 7 years. You've been friends with him for more than that. So you already are well aware of Joe Budden's behavior and how he treats people. You have seen him you have worked with him, how he communicates with employees, ex-employees, his friends, the music industry. How his relationship with DJ Academics is how he handled that. So for you guys to be totally surprised on how he would treat you guys, I'm just not buying it. At the end of the day, all three of these individuals handled it the wrong way: Joe Budden, Rory, and Mal. And it's good to see that Joe Budden finally admit live and direct that a lot of these situations that are circling Joe Budden, he mismanaged and mishandled those situations. Okay. Now, another thing I wanted to address, he also addressed this on the podcast, and I've been saying this even before Joe Budden addressed this. I've been saying this in several videos. The issue between Joe Budden, Rory, and Mal, it had nothing to do with the lack of respect Joe Budden had for Rory and Mal, because let's just face it, guys, you witnessed him and how he handled and treated people. And at any given time, you guys could have left, but you chose not to leave. Okay, so you can't say you're a victim of it when you just pretty much accepted his behavior. All right, I want to address that first. So, and I kept saying in a lot of my videos how I feel like this is more financial than personal on how Joe Budden is treating Rory and Mal. I felt like the real beef between Rory and Mal and Joe Budden was finances. The majority of their conversations about why Joe Budden dislikes Rory, why Rory dislikes Joe Budden, why Mal dislikes Joe Budden, why, there's a misunderstanding between Joe Budden and Mal. The majority of the conversations had to do financially, had to do with business. Okay, I'm sorry. And I want to point out this one thing that Joe Budden finally admitted in the episode that premiered on YouTube. I believe it was yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, that the Spotify deal, he even pointed to the Spotify deal. Okay, I've been telling you guys this for the longest. Nobody didn't want to believe me, but you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Joe Budden says that Spotify deal is pretty much what was the last straw, or That's when the issues started to roll down the hill like a snowball, turning into an avalanche. And he talked about when he left the Spotify deal, there was no other deal that could equal or replace the Spotify deal. If Joe Budden had to do this all over again, if he can go back into the future, if he can go into a DeLorean and go back into the future with Michael J. Fox, he probably would have went on and took that Spotify deal. Joe Budden said that that was a low ball figure Spotify gave him, and he just did not like the deal. All right. But if Joe Budden had to do it all over again, he probably would have taken that deal and figured out other ways to make the podcast successful business-wise. The podcast was successful for the fans, for the views, for the comments, okay? But behind all that, you still have to run and orchestrate a business. And Joe Budden even said this, and Rory has mentioned this, how it takes a lot of money to keep this machine going, okay? And Joe Budden was probably factoring, even though with this Spotify money, I'm still going to be in the red, okay? This is not going to make a profit for me, all right? Rory and Mal, I felt like at first they were not aware of that, but when they got what little information that they can get from it, that's when they had an issue with it, okay? The business is poorly run, okay? It just is, okay? If you don't want to believe it, just the recent I forgot the girl's name. I just said it in the beginning. He mishandled and mismanaged that because he didn't have the proper staff or the proper personnel to correct him. Okay, when he had the issue with the young female. All right, if that doesn't give you guys an example on how the Joe Budden podcast is poorly mismanaged, is poorly misrun, okay, I don't know what else I can tell you guys, okay? He's overpaying people. I don't know if he's doing it for the kindness of his heart. He claims it was, but I really do think that a lot of it has to do with Joe Budden does not have a mindset for business. He has a mindset for creation. He has a mindset to spark interest in him as far as building his brand. But when you talk about all that stuff, that's the behind the scenes stuff on how to keep the engine going, how to keep this monster going, how to keep this business going. I don't think Joe Budden has that pedigree to run a business. You know, Joe Budden perceives the Joe Budden podcast as a network, okay? You know, most people, when they put network in their name, they don't believe it's a full network. It's just something that they put in their branding. But Joe Budden really had this belief that the Joe Budden network is like on the same level as a Complex, as a Revolt, okay, as VH1, okay, Def Jam. He really perceives it on that type of level. Joe Budden is just a YouTuber. He's a YouTuber like you and I, okay? Joe Budden has a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. Joe Budden has an exclusive deal with Patreon. I know a lot of professional YouTubers that do this full time. They too have a deal with Patreon, okay? And I feel like Joe Budden mismanaged this whole thing. Now, is it all Joe Budden's fault? No. I feel like Joe Budden should take some blame in this blame pie. Rory and Mal needs to take blame in this blame pie. And I feel like just those three guys alone, if they could have just came to the table and try to fix this, to salvage this, even if it meant their relationship was going to take a huge hit in doing this, okay? Maybe wait a couple of days, let Joe Budden calm down, cooler heads or prevail. If everyone thinks that, well, it's difficult to talk to Joe Budden, and which it is. It's very difficult to talk to Joe Budden. But when you're dealing with individuals like this, there's a time and place for everything. Maybe not at that particular time. You can talk to them and focus them on the issues and the problems that you have, or the problems that the business has, okay? But if you put a taper on it and discuss later on in the week or later on next week, okay, that's what you're going to have to do. Patience could have really helped these three individuals, and they probably would still be doing the Joe Budden Network, or they probably would have been doing their own, the podcast that they're doing right now could have been under the Joe Budden Network umbrella. And I told you guys, everybody's going to tune in to Rory and Mal just to hear what he has to say about Joe Budden. But when that dies down, do you have enough there to consider yourself a thriving, striving podcast business where people are going to be listening to you, come to your podcast every week to listen to the topics, okay? I still feel like Rory and Mal needs a third person, a personality there. Rory nor Mal is not a personality, okay? They can play off of the personality, all right? But they're not a personality. Like, they're missing a Joe Budden there. But Joe Budden is missing Rory and Mal to somehow balance him out, all right? At the end of the day, there's L's handed on both sides of the fence. I don't think anybody's going to win from this situation, all right? I think it's going to take Joe Budden even longer to find someone to sponsor him due to these recent accusations and Rory and Mal. And Rory and Mal is starting from the bottom, and they're working themselves up. And they're going to have to prove that they're a podcast that you want to back or sponsor, okay? So that's all I got to say with this. I think this is the closing of Joe Budden. Now, I don't feel like any more news is going to, I don't think any more Joe Budden news is going to be filtering in. I think this thing is gone, is over with. Both parties are in their separate corners, and just life goes on. I wish nothing but best for Rory and Mal. This likewise for Joe Budden. And that's all I got for today's video. I'll holler at y'all later. Deuces.